Hello and welcome. The wind carries voices across Icewind Dale, whispers that seem to emanate from the very fabric of the frozen landscape. These aren't necessarily the voices of the living, though the living do struggle here, clinging to existence in 10 small towns scattered across an endless white expanse. The wind itself becomes a storyteller in this place, and whether the sounds you hear are merely atmospheric phenomena or something deeper remains one of the region's enduring mysteries. You feel the weight of this history as the wind picks up, carrying with it not just snow and cold, but something that makes you pull your furs tighter and glance toward the mountains. Icewind Dale stretches across the northernmost reaches of Faerun, roughly 1,000 square miles of broken tundra, wedged between the Regged Glacier to the east, the nearly impassable spine of the world mountains to the south, and the sea of moving ice to the north and west. This is no gentle winter landscape of frosted trees and peaceful snowfall. This is a realm where the wind screams with such fury that it can strip flesh from bone, where temperatures plummet so low that exposed skin freezes in heartbeats, where nights stretch impossibly long, and the region receives little sunlight, particularly during the severe winter months. Yet people live here. They endure. They even thrive, after a fashion, carving out existence in a place that seems determined to reject all life. You stand in this land, feeling the crunch of snow beneath your boots, each step breaking through a crust of ice that reformed overnight. The air burns your lungs with each breath, so cold it feels like swallowing knives, but you breathe anyway because the alternative is death. Around you, the landscape stretches in all directions, an ocean of white broken only by the dark spires of the spine of the world mountains to the south, their peaks disappearing into clouds that promise more snow, always more snow. The mountain range stretches across the northwest region of Faerun, from the cold, run near the sea of moving ice, creating an almost impenetrable barrier between the frozen north and the more hospitable lands to the south. Frost giants, white dragons, yeti, and remorhaz are common in the higher peaks, while lower slopes might house trolls, hill giants, or packs of dire wolves. The 10 towns dot this frozen wasteland, each a cluster of wooden buildings and stone foundations, smoke rising from countless chimneys as people burn whatever they can find to keep the cold at bay. Bryn Shander, the largest of these settlements, sits atop a hill like a fortress, its walls offering protection from both the wind and the threats that lurk in the wilderness. Around it, the other towns form a rough circle around the 3 lakes that provide the region's true wealth: Mare Dualden, Lac Dinnesher, and Redwaters. These lakes, miraculously, never freeze completely, their depths harboring the knucklehead trout, whose bones are carved into scrimshaw, the ivory trade that makes life in Icewind Dale economically viable. Bremen sits as the westernmost settlement, built along both the Lake Mare Dualden and the Schiengame River. The town thrives not only on fishing, but also on mining, prospecting, and treasure hunting. Since the river regularly floods and sometimes leaves gold and treasures behind. Targos, the second largest settlement, stands as a pragmatic community whose people are known for their determination to survive at any cost. Tourmaline has built its reputation on the skilled scrimshanders who transform trout bones into intricate works of art, carving delicate patterns into the ivory-like material that southern traders prize highly. Lonelywood perches on the western shore of Mare Dualden, the most isolated of the 10 towns, with barely 100 residents who are as hardy as the ironwood trees surrounding their settlement. Good mead earned its name from the honey meaderies that produce a famous beverage, using what little grows during the brief summer months to create their signature drink. Dugan's Hole remains small and unremarkable, a fishing village that keeps to itself and asks few questions of newcomers. Easthaven grew from a small shanty town on the shores of Lac Dinnesher into one of the largest settlements after the paving of the Eastway Trade Road connected it to Bryn Shander, allowing it to prosper as both a trade city and a typical Dale fishing village. Caerconnig stands as a fortified settlement, its name reflecting the castle that dominates the town's architecture. Caerdeneville, being a care, was originally settled around a castle built by the Dyniv clan on the shore of Lac Dinnesher. The original population was wiped out in an orc siege, but the town was eventually retaken by other explorers and settlers. The mistrust between settlements has led to a strained and often volatile alliance, with Caerdeneville and Caerconnig particularly at odds over fishing rights in their shared waters. The history of human settlement here stretches back to the 11th century Dale reckoning, when the collective settlements of the 10 towns were founded sometime between 1143 and 1199 Dale reckoning. These early settlers were a mixed lot. Refugees from wars, criminals fleeing justice, adventurers seeking fortune, and desperate souls looking for a fresh start in a land where nobody asked questions about your past. They came to a region already inhabited by the regged barbarian tribes, nomadic peoples who had learned to survive in this harsh environment through mobility and intimate knowledge of the land. The regged tribes are children of the glacier, as suggested by their collective name. They are people of the wild, as revealed by their tribal names: the elk, the tiger, the wolf, the bear. They are the tribes of Icewind Dale, proud and wild and strong, bound to ancient traditions that have kept them alive through countless harsh winters. These wilderness folk disdain what they view as the weakness of civilized people, preferring their nomadic lifestyle that follows the reindeer herds across the tundra. Around the year of the Crown, 1351 Dale reckoning, the Righeadmen invaded the 10 towns in force and were rebuffed by an uneasy alliance formed by the folks of the Dale and the dwarves of Kelvin's Cairn. After the barbarian army was all but destroyed, Heefstog, king of the tribe of the Elk, allied the tribes with Akar Kessel, a dark wizard from Luskan who wielded the ancient artifact Crenchenibbon. This alliance threatened to conquer all of Icewind Dale until heroes rose to stop Kessel's ambitions. You feel the weight of this history as you walk through Bryn Shander's market square, past vendors selling salted fish and warm furs, past the town hall where the Council of Speakers meets to debate policies affecting all 10 towns. The architecture here speaks of practicality over beauty. Buildings are low and sturdy, designed to withstand the brutal winds that howl across the tundra. Roofs are steep to prevent snow accumulation, and windows are small to minimize heat loss. Every structure reflects the same philosophy: survival first, comfort distant second, beauty not even considered. The economy of the 10 towns revolves around those knucklehead trout, fish found only in the lakes of Icewind Dale. The bones of these fish yield precious scrimshaw that is used to make elegant carvings and sculptures, commanding high prices in southern markets. Scrimshaw art carved from the head bones of the knucklehead is a primary product of the 10 towns. In fact, discovery of knucklehead bone initially drew settlers to establish permanent communities around these lakes. Fishing crews brave the lakes year-round, cutting holes through ice in winter, casting nets from boats in the brief summer months when the water opens. It's dangerous work. Men fall through thin ice, boats capsize in sudden storms, and sometimes creatures from the depths pose threats to those who venture onto the water. But fishing isn't the only industry sustaining life here. Miners extract precious gems from beneath the tundra, particularly near Tourmaline and Bryn Shander, where deposits of jade, pearl, and other valuable stones lie hidden in ancient rock formations. Hunters track the reindeer herds alongside the regged barbarians, providing meat and hides. Trappers pursue Arctic foxes, ermines, and polar weasels for their valuable pelts. Every person in the 10 towns contributes something, because those who don't contribute don't eat, and those who don't eat don't survive. The climate defines everything about life in Icewind Dale. Summer, when it comes, lasts perhaps 3 months, a brief respite when temperatures rise to merely cold instead of deadly, when the sun actually sets instead of circling endlessly overhead, when flowers bloom across the tundra in an explosion of color that seems almost miraculous after the monochrome winter. During this time, the towns work frantically, stockpiling food, making repairs, preparing for the inevitable return of winter's grip. trade caravans arrive from the south, bringing goods that can't be produced locally. Grain, wine, iron, finished goods. The merchants never stay long, always rushing to complete their business before the snows return. Then autumn arrives, sharp and sudden, temperatures plummeting as the sun's arc drops lower and lower until finally it disappears altogether. During the severe winter months, nights are especially long, and in normal non-blizzard conditions, twilight extends only from 10 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Icewind Dale is otherwise dark until the aurora, or the full moon, appears in the sky. Some years, supernatural forces trap the region in even deeper darkness, when the sun no longer appears above the mountains, even in what should be the height of summer, turning midday into twilight and trapping Icewind Dale in winter's dark embrace, with no sunlight or warmth to melt the snow and ice. The aurora borealis dances across the northern sky during these dark months. That ethereal curtain of colored light that provides illumination beyond lanterns and fires. The regged barbarians believe the lights are spirits of their ancestors, dancing across the sky to guide and protect their descendants. The shimmering aurora that weaves across the sky each night has sometimes been attributed to Oral the Frost Maiden, the god of winter's wrath, and some believe she uses it as a potent spell to keep the sun from rising. During the darkest months, life in the 10 towns contracts inward. People emerge from their homes only when necessary, wrapped in multiple layers of fur and wool, faces covered to protect against the wind's bite. Travel between towns becomes treacherous, undertaken only by the most desperate or foolhardy. The drop-off in caravans coming from the south and travel between settlements leaves everyone feeling isolated. The darkness can play tricks on the mind. Some folks succumb to what the locals call the white madness, a melancholy that descends with the dark, driving them to do irrational things. Yet the towns endure. Taverns become community centers where people gather to share warmth and company. Musicians play, storytellers weave tales, and families huddle together, waiting for the sun's eventual return. It's during these dark months that the bonds between townspeople strengthen, that the sense of community becomes most profound, because everyone understands that survival depends on cooperation, on looking out for your neighbor, on sharing what you have even when you have little. The geography of Icewind Dale extends beyond just the 10 towns and their lakes. To the south looms the spine of the world, a mountain range so massive and imposing that it seems less like geography and more like a wall built by gods to separate the civilized south from the frozen north. These mountains are home to frost giants, yetis, white dragons, and creatures even more terrible. Their peaks disappear into permanent cloud cover, and their valleys harbor glaciers that have existed since the world was young. Nobody knows exactly how high the tallest peaks rise, because successfully climbing them and returning to tell the tale remains an exceptional achievement. To the west lies the Sea of Moving Ice, a frozen ocean where icebergs the size of mountains drift on currents, grinding against each other with sounds like thunder. The sea is a maze of shifting ice sheets and icebergs, almost completely uncharted, with ice masses set wide enough apart for navigation, but constantly changing position. A few frozen islands are inhabited by tribes of ice hunters, a group of humans adapted to life in this inhospitable environment. Ships from Luskan sometimes brave these waters, hunting for whales and seals. Icebergs and frost-covered isles float in these waters northwest of Faerun. Most sailors consider the Sea of Moving Ice more trouble than it's worth. A graveyard of ships crushed between bergs or frozen in place when winter comes too quickly. South of the 10 towns, the tundra gradually transitions into more hospitable terrain, first becoming the Evermoors, a region of bogs and moors inhabited by trolls and other monsters, then eventually reaching actual civilized lands where temperatures allow for agriculture and permanent settlements. Most residents of Icewind Dale have never ventured that far south. They were born here, they'll die here, and the wider world of Faerun exists only as stories and rumors brought by traders. Within the tundra itself, certain landmarks stand out. Kelvin's Cairn rises southeast of Cairconig, a lone mountain separate from the spine of the world, its peak always snow-covered. It slopes home to mountain goats, dwarf sheep, and occasionally more dangerous creatures. According to the barbarians, the cairn was formed when Tempest, the god of battle, fought Kelvin, a great hero of the frost giants, and slew him on the plain of Icewind Dale. Historical records suggest that frost giant Jarl Kelvin Dueral sought to create a new Astoria with the artifact Krencheniben, drawing Tempest's wrath and burial beneath the cairn that bears his name. Although the boulder-strewn slopes look about as stable as a pile of sand, the unusual mountain has stood for as long as anyone can remember. The Regged Glacier dominates the landscape north and east of the 10 towns, a river of ice so vast that it dwarfs everything around it. This glacier moves, creaking and groaning as it flows imperceptibly southward, grinding rock to powder beneath its unimaginable weight. The glacier rises as a wall of ice that extends about 70 feet up, with some parts getting even taller, creating a nearly vertical barrier that must be climbed to access the lands beyond. What secrets lie within the glacier's frozen depths remains a subject of speculation among explorers and scholars, though the ice certainly preserves whatever it claims with remarkable efficiency. The region itself was named after the white dragon Icewind, whose true name was Ixbalil's Exillimiliax. a creature of such power and terror that it left an indelible mark on the land. This ancient worm gave Icewind Dale its name, though the dragon itself has long since passed into legend. Another famous white dragon, Icing Death, also known as Angelocastamazillion, made its lair beneath the Evermelt, until it was slain by the drow ranger Drist Darden and the barbarian Wulfgar in 1256 Dale reckoning. White dragons continue to make their lairs in the highest peaks of the spine of the world, and on isolated islands in the sea of moving ice, each one a potential threat to the 10 towns and the nomadic peoples who traverse the tundra. You feel the pulse of the land beneath your feet, ancient and powerful, indifferent to the struggles of those who dare to make their homes here. The Icewind Dale doesn't care about your survival. It doesn't hate you, but it doesn't love you either. It simply exists, eternal and unchanging, a landscape that was old when the elven kingdoms were young, that will remain long after the 10 towns crumble to ruins, and even the memories of their existence fade from history. Yet you're here anyway, part of that ongoing story of defiance, of humans looking at the impossible and deciding to try anyway. Beyond the settlements of humans, dwarves and Goliaths carve homes into the mountains, creating their own communities away from the fishing villages of the lakes. The dwarves of Kelvin's Cairn have their own histories and reasons for choosing this frozen land over the warmer halls of their southern kin. The Goliaths, adapted to high altitudes and extreme cold, make their homes in caves, proud hunters who maintain their own traditions in the high peaks. The regged nomads continue to follow herds across the tundra, maintaining their traditional ways despite the encroachment of settled civilization. And then there are the giants. They watch from their mountain fortresses, these massive beings who view humans as barely worth noticing, except when hunger drives them to raid, or when pride demands they respond to perceived insults. The frost giants of the spine of the world represent a constant threat, an ever-present danger that shapes how the 10 towns develop, how they build their defenses, how they plan for the future. Wolves, frost giants, and worse, stalk the blizzards that sweep across this land, making every journey beyond the walls a gamble with death. You stand at the edge of Bryn Shander, looking south toward those distant mountains, and you know the giants are up there, living their own lives, pursuing their own goals, largely indifferent to the existence of the 10 towns, except when those towns prove useful or annoying. The relationship between humans and giants here reflects a pattern seen throughout nature, one of wary coexistence, respect born from awareness of mutual danger, and the constant understanding that peace persists only when both sides find conflict more costly than cooperation. This is Icewind Dale, the frozen heart of the North, where survival is victory and seeing another dawn counts as success. This is where your journey begins, here among the hardy folk of the 10 towns, here beneath the dancing aurora, here in the shadow of the spine of the world, and the giants who call those mountains home. Section 2. Giants of Ice and Stone. The frost giants remember when the world was theirs. They remember Astoria, the empire of giants that stretched across Faerun when humans were little more than scattered tribes, when the ordning placed giants at the apex of civilization, and all other races existed merely as lesser beings. The giants of the spine of the world carry this ancestral memory, passed down through generations in oral traditions that span thousands of years. Stories of glory and conquest, of the time before the fall, when giant kind ruled and the very mountains trembled at their passing. You hear their voices sometimes, carried on the wind that howls through the mountain passes, deep and resonant like thunder rolling across stone. These are not the mindless roars of beasts, but words in the giant tongue, conversations between beings who view the centuries differently than humans view decades, whose perspective encompasses epochs rather than seasons. The frost giants of Icewind Dale are not mere monsters lurking in caves, waiting to be slain by adventurers seeking glory and treasure. They are a culture, a society with its own hierarchies and traditions, its own values and conflicts, existing parallel to human civilization, but operating on a scale and time frame that makes human concerns seem fleeting. The ordning defines everything in frost giant society, an ancient ranking system that determines each giant's place in the hierarchy based on strength, prowess in battle, and deeds of valor. Among frost giants, physical might reigns supreme. The strongest giant leads, the weakest serves, and challenges to authority are settled through combat that shakes the mountainside and sends avalanches cascading down into the valleys below. This is not cruelty in the giant's view, but natural order, the way things should be, the way things were when Astoria stood proud. Their strongholds are carved into the highest peaks of the spine of the world, where the air grows thin and snow falls year-round, even in summer. These are not crude caves, but fortresses, halls hewn from living rock by hands strong enough to shatter stone. Based on what we know of giant culture, these strongholds likely display trophies from centuries of hunts and battles. Mammoth tusks might arch overhead like vaults. The skulls of white dragons could adorn walls, evidence of victories against rivals who also claimed the mountains as their domain. Furs from polar bears, winter wolves, and yeti likely cover floors worn smooth by the passage of countless feet, each giant weighing as much as a dozen humans. The Jarls rule these holds, chieftains whose strength and cunning have elevated them above their peers, whose authority goes unquestioned until someone strong enough to challenge them emerges. Each Jarl commands groups of frost giants, along with various servants and creatures bound to their service. Some Jarls trace their lineage back to the days of Astoria itself, claiming descent from the ancient giant lords who ruled before the empire fell. Others are upstarts, giants who rose through sheer force of will and strength of arm, caring nothing for bloodlines and everything for power. Jarl Kelvin Duerall stands as perhaps the most famous frost giant in Icewind Dale's history, though his fame comes wrapped in legend and cautionary tales. According to the barbarians, Kelvin was a great hero who fought Tempest himself, the god of battle, on the plains of Icewind Dale. The god slew the giant and raised a cairn over his body, a mountain of stone that still bears the frost giant's name. Historical records tell us that Kelvin Duerall sought to recreate Astoria's glory, to unite the frost giant clans under his rule, and reclaim the dominion giantkind had lost. He wielded Crenchinibbon, an artifact of terrible power, though whether this drew divine wrath or simply marked him as a threat to the established order remains a matter of interpretation. The cairn remains, testament to a frost giant's ambition. The frost giant's connection to Astoria goes deeper than mere nostalgia for a lost empire. They see themselves as the rightful inheritors of the world, temporarily displaced but not defeated. Every raid on the 10 towns, every attack on trade caravans struggling through the mountain passes could be interpreted as more than simple predation. These actions might represent assertions of ancient territorial claims, though whether individual giants consciously think in these terms or simply follow patterns established by their ancestors remains unclear. Within the Ordning, frost giants measure worth through displays of strength and martial prowess. A giant who slays a powerful monster rises in status. A giant who leads successful raids gains prestige. A giant who crafts exceptional weapons or armor from the bones and hides of worthy opponents earns respect. Conversely, weakness brings shame. A frost giant who flees from battle, who fails to provide for their clan, who shows cowardice in any form, sinks in the Ordning and becomes subject to the commands of those they once considered equals. The strongholds themselves likely reflect this hierarchy. The Jarl would occupy the highest chambers, closest to the mountain peaks, and the sky, symbolically elevated above all others. Champions and favored warriors would dwell on the next levels, their proximity to the Jarl reflecting their importance. Common giants would inhabit lower chambers, and thralls, the slaves captured from raids or born into servitude, would occupy the deepest caves where the cold seeps through stone and ice forms on walls even in summer. The scale of frost giant construction overwhelms human senses. Doorways tower 30 feet high, Hallways stretch wide enough for 3 frost giants to walk abreast, and ceilings disappear into shadow far overhead. The temperature in their strongholds never rises above freezing, even in the deepest chambers. Frost giants prefer the cold, thrive in it, their ice-blue skin and white hair marking them as creatures of winter, as much a part of the frozen landscape as the glaciers and snowfields. The giants hunt across the mountains and down onto the tundra, pursuing prey both for sustenance and for sport. Reindeer herds provide meat and hides, though hunting them brings frost giants into conflict with the regged barbarian tribes, who also depend on these animals. Mammoths offer greater challenges and greater rewards, their ivory tusks prized as trophies, and their meat capable of feeding a clan for weeks. White dragons, the giants' ancient rivals for dominance of the spine of the world, represent the ultimate prey, creatures whose defeat brings enormous prestige within the ordning. The relationship between frost giants and white dragons has existed since before recorded history, a rivalry born from competition for the same territories and resources. Both species claim the highest peaks as their rightful domain. Both hoard treasure in mountain caves. Both view themselves as apex predators, superior to all other creatures. When giant and dragon meet, combat usually follows, titanic battles that reshape mountainsides and create legends told around fires for generations. Goliaths who dwell in the mountains have learned to navigate this dangerous landscape, and some mark their caves with the skulls of creatures they've defeated, warnings that the inhabitants are formidable hunters. This could suggest a form of communication that frost giants recognize and respect, an acknowledgement of prowess that transcends species. Strength deserves acknowledgement, regardless of the creature displaying it. The frost giants' raids on the 10 towns follow patterns established over centuries. Winter brings the most frequent attacks, when food grows scarce in the mountains, and the giants descend to the lowlands seeking provisions. They often come at night, taking advantage of the extended darkness to approach with less chance of early detection. A single frost giant can smash through a town's wooden palisade with a few blows from their great club. A raiding party of 3 or 4 giants can overwhelm a town's defenders and loot warehouses before reinforcements arrive from neighboring settlements. But the relationship between giants and the 10 towns is not purely antagonistic. Pragmatism sometimes overrides aggression. Some jarls have been known to negotiate, accepting tribute from the towns in exchange for peace during particular seasons, though historical records of such arrangements are limited. These arrangements rarely last, broken when a new jarl takes power and decides to prove their strength through conquest rather than diplomacy, or when the towns grow tired of paying protection, money, to creatures they view as threats. Around 1351 Dale Reckoning. During the conflict with Akar Kessel, frost giants became involved with the wizard who wielded Krenshiniben. The wizard promised power and dominion, and some giants joined his cause. Many frost giant jarls likely saw through Kessel's deceptions, recognizing him as unworthy of command. Others, desperate for any chance to reclaim lost glory, allied with him. This alliance, combined with Kessel's domination of the regged barbarian tribes, nearly succeeded in conquering all of Icewind Dale before heroes intervened, and shattered both the wizard and his ambitions. The memory of that failure still reverberates through giant society. The giants who survived Kessel's defeat returned to their mountain holds, and those who had followed a human warlock likely faced questions about their judgment from other jarls. Yet some frost giants might have learned from those events that cooperation with the smaller races, while unusual, could achieve goals that strength alone could not. These giants would represent a minority within their culture, but they would exist, scattered among the various clans, considering different approaches than endless raiding and conflicts. The traditional frost giant family structure centers on the jarl and their mate, who together produce offspring that begin their lives in the ordning at positions influenced by their parents' rank. Young frost giants must then prove themselves worthy through deeds and displays of strength. Some rise above their initial status, earning glory through exceptional achievements. Others fall, unable to maintain the position they were born into, sinking through the ranks until they find their appropriate level. This creates a dynamic hierarchy where position constantly shifts based on performance rather than remaining fixed by birth. Frost giant younglings spend decades learning their people's ways, training in combat, studying the oral histories that preserve knowledge of Astoria and giantkind's former glory. By the time they reach adulthood, they are already formidable warriors. But they are also students of their culture, able to recite genealogies stretching back centuries, to describe battles fought long before they were born, to understand their place in the long arc of giant history that extends from Astoria's height through its fall to the present. Religion among frost giants tends toward worship of Thrym, the god of frost giants, and cold, though some clans maintain devotion to Annam Allfather, the creator deity of all giantkind. Thrym embodies the qualities frost giants value most: strength, endurance, the ability to survive and thrive in the harshest environments. His priests, rare among the frost giant population, receive respect and elevated status within the ordning despite not necessarily being the strongest warriors. Their connection to divine power earns them a different kind of prestige, one based on spiritual authority rather than physical might. The giants craft weapons, and armor suited to their massive size and strength. Great axes and great clubs serve as primary weapons, each one large enough that a human would struggle to lift it with both hands. Some giants wield boulders as throwing weapons, hurling stones the size of wine barrels with enough force to shatter wooden walls. Their armor, when they wear it, consists of hides and furs from the mightiest beasts they've slain, layered and treated to provide protection without sacrificing mobility. A frost giant in full battle gear, standing 20 feet tall and wielding a weapon that weighs more than a horse, represents a force that few opponents can withstand. Yet for all their physical might, frost giants are not invincible. They can be outmaneuvered by quicker opponents. Magic affects them as it affects any creature. A well-coordinated group of defenders can bring down even a mighty warrior through focused attacks and tactical positioning. The giants know this, which is why their raids typically target less defended settlements rather than fortified positions. They understand risk versus reward, preferring to strike where they can win decisively rather than engage in battles that might result in losses their clans cannot afford. The population of frost giants in the spine of the world remains relatively small, likely a few hundred individuals scattered across multiple strongholds. This limited population reflects both the harsh environment that supports only so many apex predators and the giants' own slow reproduction rate. Frost giant children take decades to mature, and challenges from monsters or rival giants keep population growth minimal. Every frost giant death diminishes the species slightly. Another step in the long decline from Astoria's glory to present circumstances. Some frost giants dream of reversing this decline, of finding a way to restore what was lost. They seek artifacts of power, like the one Jarl Kelvin Duerol once wielded. They attempt to form alliances with other giant types, trying to recreate the unity that made Astoria great. They conduct raids not merely for provisions, but as recruitment, capturing skilled craftsmen and magic users who might provide knowledge giants need to rebuild. These efforts rarely succeed, but the attempts continue, generation after generation, sustained by memories of what once was and hope for what might someday be again. You stand in the shadow of the spine of the world, and you understand that the frost giants above are not simple obstacles to be overcome or enemies to be defeated. They are a civilization in decline, clinging to memories of empire while struggling to survive in a world that has moved beyond them. Their raids on the 10 towns represent not mindless aggression, but desperate attempts to maintain relevance, to prove to themselves and others that giant kind still matters, that the ordning still has meaning. That strength still determines destiny. Whether you view them as tragic figures clinging to a lost past, or as dangerous threats depends on your perspective. But their presence shapes Icewind Dale as surely as the glaciers and the eternal winter. Section 3. The Whispering Glaciers and Buried Secrets. The Regged Glacier holds secrets, though their exact nature remains a matter of speculation and explorer tales. This massive river of ice stretches across the landscape like a frozen barrier, rising as a wall 70 feet high in some places, even taller in others, a nearly vertical face of ancient ice that must be climbed to access the lands beyond. You approach this wall and feel the cold radiating from it, a chill that goes deeper than mere temperature, that seems to emanate from the very age of the ice itself, from the weight of centuries compressed into crystalline layers. The glacier moves, though you cannot see it with your eyes. It flows southward at a pace measured in inches per year, grinding rock to powder beneath its unimaginable weight, creaking and groaning as internal stresses build and release. Sometimes the sounds carry for miles across the tundra, deep booms like thunder that make the ground tremble beneath your feet, reminding everyone within earshot that the glacier lives in its fashion, that it shifts and changes even as it appears eternal and unchanging. Whether anything lies buried within the ice remains one of Icewind Dale's enduring mysteries. The glacier has existed for millennia, and logic suggests it must have claimed things during its slow advance across the landscape. Explorers tell stories of seeing shapes in the ice, of discovering artifacts emerging from melting sections, of finding evidence that something once existed where now only frozen water remains. Whether these tales represent genuine discoveries or the desperate hopes of treasure seekers remains difficult to verify. You can hear sounds sometimes, carried by wind moving across the glacier's surface. Stand close to the glacier wall during the deep winter darkness, when the wind dies down and silence settles across the tundra like a blanket. And you'll hear what might be voices or might be acoustics, sounds that seem to form patterns like speech in languages no living person knows. The sound seems to come from within the ice itself, muffled and distant. Some say these whispers are merely wind moving through cracks and fissures in the ice, natural acoustics creating the illusion of speech. Others believe the sounds are real, evidence of something within the glacier trying to communicate. The truth remains elusive. The Regged barbarian tribes take their name from this glacier, calling themselves children of the ice. Their legends speak of ancestors who emerged from the glacier itself in ancient times, people of ice who learned to survive on the tundra through strength and adaptation. Whether these legends contain literal truth or represent symbolic understanding of their origins in this frozen land, the tribes maintain deep spiritual connections to the glacier. Their shamans conduct vision quests on the ice, seeking guidance from ancestral spirits they believe dwell within the frozen depths. Climbing the glacier face requires skill, courage, and proper equipment. The ice is hard as stone in most places, requiring picks and pitons to ascend. In other areas, the surface becomes treacherous, appearing solid, but concealing hollow spaces where falling through means plummeting into crevasses that descend hundreds of feet into darkness. Many who attempt the climb never reach the top, their bodies swallowed by the glacier. Those who do reach the glacier's upper surface find a landscape alien and beautiful in equal measure. The ice stretches to the horizon, its surface sculpted by wind into fantastic shapes. Ridges and valleys, towers and bowls, formations that catch and refract light in ways that make the entire glacier seem to glow from within. Meltwater streams carve channels across the surface during the brief summer, creating rivers that flow across ice, sometimes disappearing into sinkholes that bore straight down through the glacier to the bedrock hundreds of feet below. Within the ice caves that form in the glacier's interior, explorers claim to have discovered artifacts, though verifying these reports proves difficult. Weapons of unusual design, coins bearing unfamiliar symbols, tablets inscribed with unknown writing systems. These discoveries, if genuine, hint at something lost beneath the ice. Whether these artifacts represent ancient civilizations or merely the accumulated debris the glacier has claimed during its millennia of existence, remains open to interpretation. Some discoveries hint at magical origins, artifacts that still function after long burial suggest enchantments powerful enough to transcend time itself. Krenschinibben, the crystal shard that Akar Kessel wielded, and before him Jarl Kelvin Dueral, came from somewhere, though its exact origins remain mysterious. The shard's power to dominate minds and create towers of crystalline force speaks to magical knowledge far beyond what current civilizations possess, suggesting it might have been created by a culture of tremendous sophistication. Whether that culture left other artifacts behind, and whether the glacier holds them, remains speculation. You descend into one of the ice caves, following a tunnel that winds through the glacier's heart. The walls glow with a faint blue luminescence, sunlight filtered through countless layers of compressed ice. The temperature here drops even below the surface conditions. Cold so intense it makes your teeth ache and your lungs burn with each breath. Icicles hang from the ceiling like frozen teeth, and the floor beneath your feet is slick, glass-smooth ice worn by the passage of meltwater. Deeper into the glacier, some explorers report seeing shapes trapped in the walls, though whether these represent actual objects or simply patterns in the ice remains unclear. The mind seeks patterns, especially in extreme conditions where cold and isolation affect perception. what one explorer interprets as a building frozen in ice, another might see as merely an irregular formation of compressed snow and debris. Without the ability to safely excavate and examine these formations, certainty remains impossible. The question that haunts everyone who explores these depths is simple. What happened? If something is buried in the glacier, what catastrophe could have claimed it so completely? Natural disasters don't typically work that way, giving no warning, allowing no evacuation, no preparation. The completeness of preservation some explorers describe suggests something else, something that struck without warning, though what that might have been remains pure speculation. Some scholars theorize about ancient wars between magical civilizations, conflicts that escalated until someone unleashed devastating magic. Others speak of divine intervention, gods punishing civilizations that grew too proud or too powerful. Still others suggest experimental magic gone catastrophically wrong, attempts to harness powers not fully understood. Without evidence beyond stories and occasional artifacts of questionable provenance, these remain theories rather than established facts. The glacier itself seems almost alive at times, though this likely reflects the natural behavior of ice under stress rather than actual consciousness. Tunnels that explorers mark sometimes vanish, the ice closing in as the glacier shifts and flows. Artifacts left behind in caves disappear, either buried by ice movement or removed by other explorers. Climbers report seeing lights moving through the ice at night, pale blue glows that drift through the glacier's interior, which could be bioluminescent organisms, reflected moonlight, or aurora light filtering through the ice in unexpected ways. Remor has those massive predatory worms that generate internal heat intense enough to melt through ice and stone, make their homes in the glacier's depths. These creatures burrow through the ice, creating new tunnels and collapsing old ones, their presence making exploration even more dangerous than the cold and treacherous terrain alone would suggest. A remorhaz can sense vibrations through the ice from considerable distances, allowing them to ambush explorers. The creatures emerge from the walls in explosions of superheated steam and thrashing segments, their mandibles capable of shearing through armor and flesh with equal ease. Yet despite the dangers, expeditions into the regged glacier continue. The promise of lost knowledge and potentially powerful artifacts draws adventurers, scholars, and treasure seekers from across Faerun. Each expedition hopes to be the one that makes a significant discovery, that finds evidence of what the glacier truly holds. Most expeditions return empty-handed, if they return at all. A few bring back minor discoveries, fragments that survive the journey to the surface. Very rarely, someone emerges with something significant, an artifact or document that seems to justify all the risk and suffering. The Goliaths who dwell in the mountains have their own relationship with the glacier. They conduct hunting parties onto the ice, pursuing reindeer herds that sometimes venture onto the glacier's surface. The Goliaths mark safe paths with cairns of stones, creating routes that can be followed even when blizzards reduce visibility to arm's length. They also maintain shrines on the ice, offerings to their gods and to the spirits they believe inhabit the glacier, prayers for safe passage and successful hunts. The regged tribes tell stories of their ancestors emerging from the glacier in the distant past, the first humans to inhabit Icewind Dale. According to these legends, the glacier itself birthed the tribes, creating people adapted perfectly to life in the frozen north. Whether this represents actual history, metaphorical understanding of their origins, or simply the way oral traditions preserve and transform older truths over countless generations, the tribes maintain that their connection to the ice runs deeper than simple geography. During particularly cold winters, when the aurora dances every night and the darkness seems absolute, some people claim to see unusual phenomena on the glacier. These visions might be mirages, tricks of light and ice playing on minds stressed by cold and isolation. Or they might represent moments when extreme conditions create optical effects that reveal aspects of the glacier normally hidden. The aurora's magical nature adds another layer of uncertainty, as its influence on perception and reality in Icewind Dale remains poorly understood. The glacier's slow southward movement means it will eventually reach different areas, though not for thousands of years at its current pace. Some scholars worry that climate changes might accelerate this movement, or conversely, that warming trends will melt the glacier faster than it can advance. Either scenario would dramatically reshape Icewind Dale's geography. What the glacier might release during such changes depends entirely on what it actually holds, which remains one of the region's great unknowns. You stand at the base of the ice wall once more, having emerged from the tunnels within, and you understand that the regged glacier is more than geography, more than frozen water compressed over millennia. It's a repository of possibilities, a canvas onto which generations of explorers and dreamers have projected their hopes and fears. Whether it actually holds the civilizations and treasures and secrets that people imagine, or whether it's simply an enormous formation of ice that happens to occasionally reveal objects it claimed during its advance. The glacier continues to draw those who seek answers to questions about what came before. The sounds you hear aren't definitively voices from the past, though they might be. They could be wind through cracks, acoustic phenomena, or simply the natural sounds of ice under stress. The shapes in the ice might be ruins or might be imagination. The artifacts that occasionally emerge might be remnants of lost civilizations, or simply objects the glacier claimed from more recent times. The glacier keeps its secrets, if it has secrets to keep, revealing nothing clearly, leaving everything open to interpretation and hope. Section 4. Blood on the ice, conflict and survival. Blood stains the snow red in Icewind Dale, though the wind and fresh powder quickly cover the evidence, burying violence beneath pristine white surfaces that pretend nothing happened. This cycle repeats endlessly. Conflict, bloodshed, burial, forgetting. Then conflict again when memory fades and the same mistakes are made by new generations. The history of the 10 towns is written in these forgotten stains, in battles fought and lives lost, in the constant struggle between those who would settle and those who would drive them away, in the eternal question of who has the right to call this frozen land home. The earliest conflicts erupted between the 10 towns' founders and the regged barbarian tribes who already inhabited the region. The barbarians viewed the permanent settlements as violations of natural law, structures that scarred the tundra and disrupted the migration patterns of the reindeer herds both groups depended upon. The settlers saw themselves as pioneers bringing civilization to a wilderness, as people who had every right to build homes and establish communities in lands they perceived as largely unused. Neither side could fully understand the other's perspective, and neither side was willing to compromise initially. The early raids likely followed predictable patterns. Barbarian warriors descending on the nascent settlements when opportunity presented itself. The settlers, unprepared for the intensity of these assaults, huddled behind hastily constructed palisades. Some towns were abandoned entirely in those first decades, their populations fleeing south or dying in the defense of walls that couldn't withstand determined attacks. Others endured, learning harsh lessons about defense and vigilance, about keeping weapons close and watches alert. The barbarians fought not just to drive out invaders, but to preserve their way of life. The reindeer herds that sustained them for generations began avoiding areas near the settlements. Fishing grounds that had belonged to the tribes for as long as memory recalled suddenly found themselves claimed by townspeople who defended their catches with force. The knucklehead trout that initially drew settlers to establish permanent communities around the 3 lakes represented resources the barbarians had utilized for centuries, though their nomadic lifestyle meant they never established formal ownership in ways the settlers recognized. Around the year of the Crown, 1351 Dale Reckoning, the conflict escalated to existential proportions when Heafstog, king of the tribe of the Elk, united the regged tribes and invaded the 10 towns in force. This was no mere raid, but a coordinated assault intended to destroy the settlements entirely and reclaim Icewind Dale for the barbarians. The invasion forced the 10 towns into an unprecedented alliance, setting aside the petty rivalries and competitive jealousies that normally characterized their relationships. The dwarves of Kelvin's cairn joined this alliance, adding their martial prowess to the desperate defense. The battle that followed became legend. Townspeople and dwarves stood shoulder to shoulder against the barbarian horde, fighting with the desperation of those who knew defeat meant death or exile. The combat raged across the tundra, both sides suffering terrible casualties as neither would yield. Eventually, the combined forces of the 10 towns and the dwarves broke the barbarian army, scattering the tribes and killing so many warriors that the regged people would feel the loss for generations. It is said that only 50 warriors survived the ill-fated assault, and the harsh winter that followed took the lives of many of the women and children who had not participated in the attack. But victory proved costly for the defenders as well. Entire families lost fathers and sons. Towns that contributed heavily to the fighting found themselves vulnerable to other threats, their defenders too few to man walls against frost giant raids, or protect fishing vessels from pirates sailing from Luskan. The alliance that had seemed so strong during the battle fractured almost immediately afterward, as towns returned to competing for fishing rights and trade routes. After this devastating defeat, Hifstog made a fateful decision. He allied the surviving Ríkheadmen with Akar Kessel, a dark wizard from Luskan who had discovered Crenshinibin and wielded its terrible power. Kessel promised to restore the barbarians' dominance over Icewind Dale if they would serve him. The desperate survivors, bitter over their defeat and watching their people starve in the aftermath, joined his cause. The wizard's power, amplified by the crystal shard, allowed him to construct Crishal Tirith, a tower of magical force in the tundra, and assemble an army that threatened to overwhelm the 10 towns through sheer numbers and magical might. Heroes rose to meet this threat. The barbarian Wulfgar, son of Beornegar, challenged Hifstog and slew him in single combat, becoming king of the tribes. He brought the 50 remaining Ríkheadmen to the 10 towns, where they helped turn away Kessel's invading horde. The confrontation with Kessel ultimately resulted in the wizard's destruction and the shattering of Crenshinibin, though the exact details of how this was accomplished vary depending on who tells the tale. The aftermath of Kessel's defeat forced both the 10 towns and the regged tribes to reconsider their relationship. The barbarians who had fought under the wizard's banner felt shame at having followed a human warlock, at having betrayed their own principles. The survivors dwelled in the 10 towns for a time, mostly in Bremen and Caerconnig, settling down away from the harsh wilderness of the north. They learned to exist within what they called civilized society. Over the next couple of decades, more and more tribesmen decided to return to their traditional ways, splitting along similar tribal lines. Two new tribes sprang up, the tribes of the seal and caribou. But they were both eventually absorbed into the tribe of the elk, which had again emerged as the strongest of the Rickheadman tribes. The relationship between the barbarians and the towns evolved from pure hostility to something more complex, with limited trade beginning between the tribes and settlements like Bremen and Kerkonig, where many of their distant kin still dwelled. The 10 towns, meanwhile, recognized that conflict could arise from manipulation as well as genuine grievance. This understanding didn't erase centuries of mistrust, but it opened possibilities for different futures. Trade relationships that had been tentative became more established. Some barbarians settled permanently in the towns, choosing to abandon nomadic life, though they faced challenges from both their former tribes and their new neighbors. Yet conflict never truly ended. The frost giants continued their raids, caring nothing for human disputes, and viewing all the small folk as equally insignificant. A giant attack doesn't distinguish between townsperson and barbarian, between dwarf and Goliath. Everyone becomes vulnerable when a frost giant jarl decides a settlement has grown too prosperous or too annoying to ignore. You stand watch on Targos' walls during a winter night, eyes straining to pierce darkness broken only by aurora light. Somewhere out on the tundra, something moves. It might be nothing, wind sculpting snow into shapes that suggest threats where none exist. It might be a reindeer herd migrating across the frozen landscape. Or it might be danger approaching, and you won't know until it's close enough to see clearly. The economics of survival in Icewind Dale create their own conflicts. The knucklehead trout that sustain the 10 towns exist in finite numbers. Overfishing could deplete populations beyond recovery, destroying the very resource that makes permanent settlement viable. Yet each town competes to catch as many fish as possible, to produce as much scrimshaw as they can sell to southern traders before competitors flood the market and drive prices down. This competition breeds resentment and occasionally violence. Caerdeneville and Kerkonig had an agreement to share fishing rights in Lac Dinnesher, but nevertheless squabbled over fishing territory. The compromise satisfied no one, leaving both towns watching each other's fishing vessels for any violation of agreed-upon boundaries. Bremen discovered gold deposits in the Schiengame River, treasures washed down from mountain sources and deposited in the riverbed during spring floods. This discovery attracted prospectors and treasure hunters, people with no loyalty to the 10 towns and no interest in their survival beyond personal profit. These newcomers brought different kinds of problems: drunken brawls, theft, violence, that erupted from gambling disputes or claim-jumping accusations. Bremen's town guard found themselves overwhelmed, unable to maintain order while also defending against external threats. Tourmalane's scrimshanders formed guilds to control production quality and prices, ensuring their work commanded premium rates in southern markets. These guilds strictly regulated who could practice the craft, requiring lengthy apprenticeships and demonstrated mastery before granting permission to sell independently. This system ensured quality, but also created resentment among talented carvers who found themselves excluded. Some established independent workshops in other towns, undercutting guild prices and triggering economic competition that benefited no one except the southern merchants who bought from whoever offered the lowest prices. The dwarves of Kelvin's cairn mined the mountain for gems and precious metals, resources that supplement the income from fishing and scrimshaw. These dwarves maintain careful neutrality in disputes between towns, trading with all settlements equally and refusing to take sides in political conflicts. This neutrality occasionally frustrates the 10 towns, particularly when dwarven warriors, who proved so valuable against the barbarian invasion, decline to assist with other disputes. The dwarves argue they fulfilled their obligations by helping defend Icewind Dale from existential threats. But they won't be drawn into conflicts between towns over fishing rights or trade disputes. Goliaths hunt in the mountains and on the tundra, following their own customs and generally avoiding contact with the 10 towns unless trade benefits both parties. These towering people, adapted to high altitudes and extreme cold, view the lowland settlements with a mixture of curiosity and reserve. They understand survival in harsh environments, respect strength and self-sufficiency, and maintain their own communities in the high peaks. Yet Goliath hunters sometimes arrive in the towns with extraordinary furs or valuable materials to trade, accepting payment in worked metal weapons and armor that their people find difficult to produce in the mountains. The relationship between all these groups remains complex and constantly shifting. Alliances form based on immediate need, then dissolve when the crisis passes. Yesterday's ally becomes today's competitor, depending on circumstances and incentives. Trust is a luxury few can afford in a land where survival depends on looking out for yourself and your immediate community first. Winter brings all conflicts into sharp focus. When food grows scarce and cold becomes life-threatening, people make desperate choices. Desperation erases moral considerations, reducing everything to the simple calculus of survival. Spring brings thaw, both literal and metaphorical. Trade resumes, abundance returns, and the conflicts that seemed insurmountable during winter's depths suddenly become negotiable. Apologies are offered, reparations paid, and everyone agrees to do better next year. Then winter returns, desperation rises again, and the cycle continues because the fundamental challenge, many people trying to survive in a land that can barely support them, never really changes. You understand, standing on those walls, watching the darkness, that conflict is not an aberration in Icewind Dale, but woven into the fabric of existence here. Peace represents the aberration, brief interludes between storms when conditions temporarily align to make cooperation more beneficial than competition. The blood on the ice, quickly covered by fresh snow, will be revealed again when spring melt exposes winter's violence. And then next winter will come, and new conflicts will arise, and the cycle will continue as it has for centuries. Section 5. What lies beneath the deepest mysteries? The deepest secrets of Icewind Dale lie not on the surface, where frost giants roam, and the 10 towns struggle for survival, but beneath the ice and stone, in places where light has not reached for millennia, and where the boundaries between present and past grow thin. You descend into these depths, whether through tunnels in the regged glacier or caves that wind beneath Kelvin's cairn, and you feel the weight of accumulated mystery pressing down from above. The sense that you are moving through layers of history toward truths that remain elusive. Crenshinibin stands as perhaps the most infamous artifact ever wielded in Icewind Dale, a relic of such power that it shaped the region's history multiple times across centuries. The crystal shard, as it became known, possessed intelligence and malevolent will, seeking wielders it could corrupt and dominate, using them to pursue its own agenda of conquest and control. The artifact was originally created by 7 liches who sought to dominate all who lived under the sun, designing Crenshinibin to draw power from sunlight itself in an act of supreme irony. The magic they used to craft the artifact became unstable and absorbed the liches into it, their spirits fueling the crystal shard to new levels of power. Jarl Kelvin Dueral wielded it in ancient times, using its power to attempt recreating Astoria's glory, an ambition that ended with him buried beneath the mountain that bears his name. Centuries later, Akar Kessel discovered the artifact and used it to command frost giants and dominate regged barbarians, constructing the crystalline tower Crishel Tirith and nearly conquering all of Icewind Dale before heroes destroyed both wizard and tower. The artifact itself was eventually destroyed years later, far from Icewind Dale, though some believe fragments remain, corrupted crystal called Chardelin that still carries echoes of the shard's malevolence. The existence of such a powerful artifact raises questions about what else might lie hidden in the frozen north. If 7 liches once worked their dark magic in regions that would eventually be claimed by ice, what other creations might they have left behind? Each expedition into the glacier brings possibilities of discovery, chances to uncover relics from ages past, weapons that never dull, armor that repairs itself, rings that grant command over elements, books containing spells lost to time. All these and more could potentially lie waiting in the ice or buried beneath the mountains. You navigate an ice cave deep within the regged glacier, following a tunnel that descends at a steep angle, the walls pressing close on either side. Your light source, whether torch or magical illumination, reflects off countless ice surfaces, creating the illusion of infinite space, as if you're walking through a vast cathedral rather than a narrow passage. The temperature here drops well below anything experienced on the surface, cold so intense it seems solid, a physical presence that resists your passage. Occasionally, explorers report finding chambers that appear artificial, spaces carved with geometric precision, though whether these represent actual constructed spaces or simply unusual ice formations remains subject to debate. What artifacts might exist in such places, if they exist at all, remains one of Icewind Dale's enduring mysteries. Some items recovered from the glacier prove resilient enough to survive the transition from frozen preservation to active use, particularly those protected by powerful enchantments. The connection between Icewind Dale's surface world and the Underdark below adds another layer of complexity to the region's mysteries. Tunnels descend from caves in the spine of the world, passages that wind through solid rock for miles before emerging in the vast cavern networks where drow, duergar, and stranger creatures make their homes. These connections mean that threats to Icewind Dale can emerge not just from the mountains and tundra, but from below, forces that travel through darkness to strike from unexpected directions. Drow raiders occasionally emerge from the Underdark to capture slaves and gather resources unavailable in their subterranean realm, though the specific cities they come from and their exact locations remain difficult to verify. These raids prove devastating when they occur because the drow strike without warning, appearing from caves and tunnels that surface dwellers may not even know exist, taking captives and vanishing back into darkness before defenders can organize effective resistance. The captured are dragged below into the Underdark, where they face fates that survivors refuse to describe in detail. But the Underdark also holds potential allies. Deep gnomes, the Snurfneblin, dwell in their own communities far below the surface, and they oppose the drow with intensity born from centuries of conflict. These gnomes sometimes trade with surface dwellers, exchanging gems, and worked stone for food and information about drow movements. An alliance with deep gnome communities could provide early warning of raids, and possibly even support against shared enemies. Other creatures inhabit the spaces between surface and Underdark, monsters that thrive in the transition zones, where light fades and the weight of stone overhead grows oppressive. Remorhas tunnel through ice and rock, their internal heat allowing them to move freely through environments that would trap other creatures. These enormous worm-like predators occasionally emerge on the surface to hunt, then retreat into the depths with their prey. Following a Remorhas tunnel could theoretically lead to the Underdark, but it might also lead directly into the creature's lair, where its heat would prove fatal to unprepared explorers. The magical nature of Icewind Dale creates phenomena that scholars struggle to explain. The aurora that dances overhead is more than natural light, radiating magical energies detectable to wizards with the sensitivity to perceive such things. During some years, the aurora intensifies, becoming so bright it casts shadows at midnight. And when this happens, unusual occurrences throughout the region become more frequent. People report visions of places and times they've never experienced. The boundary between waking and dreaming becomes permeable. These phenomena might be natural side effects of the extreme environment and the magical energies that accumulate this far north, where reality grows thin and strange. Or they might be evidence of active magical workings. The whispers in the glacier, the lights that move through the ice, the visions granted by the aurora, whether these connect to each other or represent separate phenomena remains unclear. Auril the Frost Maiden, the goddess of winter's wrath, maintains particular interest in Icewind Dale. Her presence weighs heavy on the region, felt in every blizzard, every temperature drop that kills unprepared travelers, every winter that stretches longer than it should. Her clergy work to cover all lands with ice, to quench fire wherever it is found, to let in the winds and the cold. In some years, supernatural forces trap the region in deeper darkness than normal. When the sun no longer appears above the mountains, even during what should be summer, turning midday into twilight. Whether this represents Auril's direct intervention, or simply the natural extremes of Icewind Dale's climate, remains a matter of theological and meteorological debate. The modern implications of Icewind Dale's mysteries extend far beyond the 10 towns. Ancient magical knowledge, if recovered intact and understood, could revolutionize practices across all Faerun. The 7 liches who created Crenshinibin possessed power great enough to forge a sentient artifact that drew energy from the sun itself. What other knowledge did they possess? And might records of it exist somewhere in the frozen north? But such power also brings terrible danger. The liches who created Crenshinibin were absorbed into their own creation, their consciousness destroyed by the very magic they sought to control. What forces could obliterate such powerful beings? And might those forces still exist, dormant but not destroyed, waiting to be awakened by careless explorers or ambitious fools who don't understand what they're disturbing. You emerge from the glacier tunnel back onto the tundra. The transition from ice-enclosed darkness to open sky almost shocking despite the perpetual twilight. Behind you, the regged glacier rises like a wall, holding whatever secrets it might contain close, refusing to yield them easily to those who would explore its frozen depths. Before you, the 10 towns go about their business, fishing the lakes, carving scrimshaw, preparing for the next winter, largely focused on the immediate concerns of existence rather than ancient mysteries. Most residents of Icewind Dale care nothing for ancient artifacts or powerful magic. They care about surviving until spring, about catching enough fish to justify the risk, about keeping their children warm through the darkest months. The grand mysteries that fascinate scholars and adventurers are irrelevant to people whose entire focus narrows to the immediate concerns of existence in one of the harshest environments humans inhabit. Yet those mysteries matter, whether the common folk recognize it or not. Crenchinibbin nearly destroyed the 10 towns when Kessel wielded it. Other artifacts of similar power might still wait to be discovered, and when they're inevitably found, they could reshape the region again. The drow in the Underdark below might launch major assaults rather than scattered raids, potentially overwhelming defenses through superior numbers and magic. Auril might intensify her grip on the region, making survival even more difficult than it already is. The frost giants watch from their mountain strongholds, remembering Astoria, dreaming of restoration, waiting for the opportunity or the artifact or the alliance that might let them reclaim what was lost. They know the mountains hold secrets, that artifacts from ages past might still exist, that somewhere in the frozen depths lies something that could change everything. They search, patient as only creatures who measure time in centuries can be patient, and eventually someone will find something. Icewind Dale stands at multiple convergence points, past and present preserved in the glacier's ice, surface and underdark connecting through mountain tunnels, mortal and divine intersecting in aurora light and winter's endless cold. These convergences create opportunities and dangers in equal measure, making the region simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. A place where legends are born and where legends die forgotten beneath the snow. You stand on the tundra, wind pulling at your furs, and you understand that Icewind Dale's greatest mystery might not be what lies buried in the ice or hidden beneath the mountains. It might be why anyone stays, why people choose to endure hardship and danger and isolation when they could leave, could travel south to warmer lands where survival doesn't require constant vigilance and desperate measures. Perhaps it's stubbornness, the refusal to admit defeat. Perhaps it's love for a harsh land that reveals beauty in ways gentler places never could. Perhaps it's simply that those who make their homes here cannot imagine living anywhere else, that the frozen north has claimed them as surely as the glacier claims whatever it encompasses. The sounds continue, carried on wind that never fully stops, whether voices from the past or simply natural acoustics, warnings and promises and stories that few take time to hear. The glaciers advance and retreat on timescales that make human lives seem like heartbeats. The frost giants remember empire and dream of restoration. The 10 towns endure, their people living lives of quiet determination, punctuated by moments of transcendent beauty when the aurora dances and the ice gleams like diamonds. And you remember why, despite everything, this frozen realm feels like home. Beneath the Icewind Dale, frost giants and whispering glaciers keep their secrets, revealing them slowly, reluctantly, to those brave or determined enough to search. The stories are not finished, the mysteries not solved, the conflicts not resolved. History continues to unfold in this frozen land, written in blood on snow, preserved in ice for future generations to discover and interpret. And you are part of that history now, whether you sought to be or not. Your footprints in the snow, another layer added to the accumulated record. Another voice added to the whispers that will echo through the glacier long after you've gone. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through Icewind Dale, exploring the frost giants who remember empire, the glaciers that preserve whatever they claim, and the mysteries buried beneath ice and stone. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the frozen north, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Lore D&D for more explorations of the lore and legends that make our favorite fantasy worlds so rich and compelling. Until next time, stay warm, stay curious, and remember that even in the harshest environments, stories survive, waiting to be told.